have the executive order, and we have an ordinance, and then that ordinance needs to be either vetoed or signed and then come back. But we absolutely, and the obligation to, what we're doing here is clarifying representative government. And if we don't proceed, if we do not have this discussion, we're depriving the people of what they voted for.
If I may speak to
When I
that,
keep hearing you, please.
if I may speak to that, because I've been around a long time, as you all know. I've been with the city 11 years. I have spent most of my career with the city, working directly with city councils on legislative matters and on zoning matters. 2 years ago, I was appointed to city attorney, and my role did change. And my role is to represent the entire city of Tampa corporate entity. And I take that role very seriously. I'm sitting in this room and I hear the emotion in this room. And I do not suggest on any level that the emotion in this room isn't real or isn't a fair representation of what people see that they want to have changed. However, my role as city attorney, which really isn't that dissimilar to my role when I was in zoning hearings with many of you, is to tell you what I see the law says, what I see your authority is, and now it's to tell more where I see the mayor's authority is under the charter, as well as department heads, as well as all employees. So I can only tell you, as I have in my memo, where the role and authority of the mayor is to execute any form of action, and in this instance, the type of action that he has executed falls squarely within his authority under the charter. The second question becomes, and that's what we're talking about today, what is city council's authority? What is their role? And what is it they can adopt either through a legislative act, an ordinance, or through an administrative act, which would be a resolution. I have set that forth in the memo. It is my opinion, and I have stated this, that you have the absolute authority under the charter to set forth a board which is advisory to you. I do also want to talk about the subpoena power issue because I did not spend a lot of time on that on my memo, and I think it is an important issue for everybody. And that has been done in the past. It has typically been done by resolution. For an advisory board, the budget advisory board is a perfect example, as I've stated. And if that's something city council wants to continue to have conversations about and direct me to look at those issues or draft something for you, that's what my job is. I'm here to do that. But I can only tell you that which is your authority, and city council can only delegate the authority that it actually has, just as the mayor can only delegate the authority that the mayor actually has.
And here's my question, because we received your opinion 5 minutes into the press conference. Why wasn't that opinion brought to us before? Why didn't we have an opportunity to look at and question? You know,
if you see the opinion, it actually went to both the mayor and to chair as city council as an item together. And why I did it that way is because you were asking, as a board, for me to be responsive on it today as to this issue. And I was being asked by the administration a very similar question. So I will say that it was submitted as part of the fact that typically we submit our memos the Friday before, and the timing of it was the timing of it. I also would suggest to you that I did not receive Mr. Shelby's memo until 4 o'clock last night, and I'd like to give a little more courtesy than that, because I needed to have time to be able to analyze these issues.
okay.
So I would say to you, if you would like to typically have more time on when you get legal memorandums from the city attorney's office, I would ask for you to ask for me for additional, to have them brought to you sooner. But I think the Friday before the Thursday meeting has been typical.
Okay, that's very fine. Then how did the mayor know to have this press conference to introduce this executive? I have the power. How did he know that?
Because he asked me the same question that you all were asking me.
Only you answered his and not ours.
No, I actually answered yours. I just included him on the memo so that you could see that the same opinion was going to everybody as my client.
So he
the
knew
city.
on Friday before, he called a press conference, and it was out on Monday for Friday. And the press conference is how,
Well, let me take a step back. You did not ask me for a written legal opinion. I chose to provide one. And here, there's not a request for a written legal opinion. Second of all, there's not. And second of all, I had actually had some conversations ahead of time with the city council attorney prior to me issuing anything, prior to me answering anything. And he assured me he was bringing that information to you as to what my position was. So I think I'm a little confused why all of a sudden this has become an issue because of the timing of it. When I answered the question that was asked of me, I put it in writing, which I was not required to do or requested to do. I chose to give it to everyone all at the same time. The mayor has every right to ask me verbally what my opinion is, just like you all do individually. And I've never not responded when I've been asked those kinds of questions. I made the decision as the city attorney to submit this to everybody in a clear way so that everybody understood what my position is. He did not need me to put it in writing to him prior to him issuing his executive order. He could have relied on my verbal advice to him.
we didn't get the verbal advice, but let's move on. I'm done with this question for now.
And the only other thing I did want to respond to, and I think it is an important question, is this question of subpoena power. Because that is not something that I spent a lot of time addressing in the memo. It is addressed, but I did not address it very extensively. And so since that has become a very, very significant issue that I've heard today, and I've been hearing over the last few weeks, I thought it would be appropriate for me to respond to that. The opportunity for any municipality to have any form of subpoena power, it is very extraordinary in the law. It is typically a judicial remedy. There is the ability for municipalities to have subpoena power, but it needs to be derived not by an ordinance created by a legislative body. It is very clear in the law that that is not an acceptable way to grant subpoena power, for it to be delegated to a separate body or to be granted unto itself. It either has to come through a charter enactment or through federal law, state law, or some kind of general act of special act of the legislature. I apologize. There is case law directly on point on that, and in fact, it's case law directly on point as it relates to the creation of the Civilian Review Board, Police Review Board. I've heard many of the people who have been involved in this conversation cite to the city of Miami, and it's a very interesting example. The city of Miami was involved in litigation under which it had created a citizen police review board via resolution granting subpoena power that in a very specific way existed in their charter in a manner very similar to the way you have subpoena power within your charter. The language is virtually identical. That board was set up. Police officer was subpoenaed. The police officers challenged that subpoena. The 3rd District Court found that the provision in the charter which allowed for limited investigatory subpoena power could not be utilized or delegated to the standing Civilian Police Review Board. The city of Miami ultimately amended their charter and provided not only for the creation of a Civilian Police Review Board, but also provided for that subpoena power. A second case was brought after that charter change occurred and after the ordinance was amended to provide for that. The 3rd District Court of Appeals, who heard it again after a police officer challenged it, said yes, this was the proper mechanism under which that subpoena power could be delegated. Within your charter, there is no authority for city council, nor is there authority for the mayor to have this kind of subpoena power, nor is there any way for that to be delegated. That is very clear within the law.
All right, and I'm going to ask you with future responses to shorten your responses so everybody get a chance to go around and we can get out of here with this up by 1 o'clock. Mr. Miranda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, what I see here happening, it makes no difference who the mayor is, makes no difference who the council members are. We're looking to change the charter without changing the charter. In other words, in order to change the charter, the public has to take a vote. And it's happened at various times in the city of Tampa. So whoever the mayor is issues an executive order. And by the way, this ain't the first mayor that's issued an executive order, there's been others on different subject matters. So this council or other council don't like it. So they write an ordinance to supersede that veto power. In essence, that's what they're doing. That is then rejected by the person who sits in the mayor's office, comes back to that city council and needs 5-2 votes, supermajority to pass that. Let's say it happens, but you got is another chaos instead of reality. And that's what you're doing without letting the public, this is the important part, the charter is nothing more than a constitution. Not greater or not smaller, but it's equal to the Constitution of the way this country governs itself. So then we're changing the Constitution of this city, so-called the charter, without the public having the right to vote. That's my take on it. That's what I've heard so far. So I have no one, and I'll bring it up. If you want to change something, change the charter. If you want to change from a strong mayor form of government, then change it to something else. Or try to change it to somebody else because the public's entitled to vote. What's happening here goes back to we only have one president, the United States of America. Thank God we do. We only got one governor. We only got one mayor. We have many opinions. But at the end of the day, it rests with those individuals that were elected to that higher office to make a decision. I can't tell you if it's the right decision or the wrong decision, but at least that person made a decision, and you have responsible people being looked at for what they did, rightly or wrongly. They hold that in their hands. So what we're doing here, in some form or fashion, maybe I'm wrong, is saying no. We want to have 2 city attorneys, that's what I see, instead of 1. Because I see more interaction that I've never seen before. It used to be prior to 2008, well, the charter was changed, that the city council attorney was an assistant city attorney. I had no problems ever. Now you go back and you start having, I have the right to do this, the council got the right to do that. There's 2 interpretations of the charter. There should only be 1, because it says that the city attorney is the only one that can issue those opinions, not the city council attorney. So we're getting more and more into changing the charter without changing the charter by a vote than ever before. I don't like to see this city fall apart. I see the unraveling of a baseball, that one of the seams on it is not quite perfect. I don't kiss nobody behind at any time, this mayor or any other mayor. If I gotta tell them to go to hell, I go tell them personally. And I've done that before, in different areas, with different mayors. So if we wanna change the charter, then change it. Put it down and let the public vote on it. But don't kill it to death. Don't kill this city by doing what I think we're starting to do in little interaction squabbles. Somebody wants to run, there's an election coming up in 3.5 years. God bless you. Go do it. And see what happens when you get elected. Somebody's gonna get elected. So whether it's this mayor or another mayor, whoever sits there, it's about getting it done right. And the only way you want to get it done right is you want to change the charter, take it to the people. Stop squabbling and stop saying, oh, you're wrong, hey, you're not entitled to this. This is that person, whoever it is entitled to do a lot more than we are. We're legislative and they're administrative. You have to work in concert, and you have to understand that that music must come out perfect, not sharp and not flat, but on a level so that all the public gets a right to state their vote. And again, if we want to mess around with the charter, then that's changing. Stop talking about it, face the facts, and go do it. But stop making this city look bad. Stop making this city something it ain't. Because to me, it's one of the greatest cities in the world. Maybe I'm a little exaggerated, but you know what? I lived this city all my life, and the only reason that I live here is because I think it's the best city around.
Me too, Chuck.
There's a lot of cities I could go to. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We're gonna have, comment from Mr. Corn, and I think once I make a few comments, I will also make a comment that you can't serve two masters
At one time.
at one time, and that's what we got here. Mr. Corn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your comment at the beginning of the meeting. This is not, there's a lot of emotion on this dais, there's a lot of emotion in the audience, and these matters are not personal. They are the business that we are put here to do. I wanted to just start by quoting myself from the last meeting that we had. A line that actually I'm quoting it from the Tampa Bay Times. And what it was that I said was, if we can come up with a model that we all agree works, I think it's incumbent on the mayor and us to work together under the terms of the charter to put the best type of committee forward and not worry about whose power it is to do it. And the reason that I said that is because where I see us going is to a power struggle between us and the mayor, and my concern is that in losing that struggle, we will ultimately undermine what it is the public asked us to do. What I said, again, in our last meeting was, what I heard this morning is not just that people want a committee. They want a committee that actually makes a difference, that actually has the ability to foster dialogue, to be real. People have come up to me in the community recently and said, don't just create something that's window dressing, create something real. Well, under the terms of the charter, one thing is for sure. If we create a body, and by the way, I don't see a conflict with what Mr. Shelby said and what Ms. Mandel said. In fact, we absolutely have the right to create by ordinance an advisory committee. But the question is, what does advisory mean, and who is it advising, excuse me. The problem here is that if we create something, even advisory in nature, without cooperating at all with the mayor in doing it, and let me just say this. Obviously, the council was affronted by the fact that the mayor, it was called a preemptive strike, had a preemptive press conference to announce the formation of the board prior to us having this meeting. Granted that was something that caused some consternation among some of the council. But the fact of the matter is that if we insist on doing something that is totally at odds with what he wants, under the charter, he has the power not to cooperate with it. And at the end of the day, it will get us nowhere. Because he is, and I'm looking at the charter itself. And it says, the mayor, and this is exactly why I thought getting into this matter was counterproductive, it exercises direct control and supervision over all departments and divisions of the municipal government. If a committee is put in place to advise him, it's totally within his discretion whether or not he's going to cooperate and listen to that committee or not. At least with the proposal that he put on the table, there is an implication that he is going to actually listen to what it says, and he's given us, and according to him, he doesn't have to give us the two appointments to it. Ms. Patty, when she was speaking, said if you don't have the power to create what it is you're asking us to create, tell us the truth. I think it's less about whether or not we have the power to create something than whether or not we can work toward creating something that is effective. And something that is effective has to involve everybody. It can't just be what we want, it can't just be what the mayor wants, it has to be a collective effort. We have a relatively new chief of police. He is grappling with difficult problems where there is a national conversation about these issues that is going on in this country and that is definitely rooted in real anxiety, fear,